Thank you for coming to our press conference this morning out front of New Life Church in Colorado Springs. Late last year, Pastor Ted Haggard was forced to admit that he had sexual relations with other men. Then, after 3 weeks of therapy, church leaders inside New Life proclaimed him 100% heterosexual. This put into the public eye the existence of ex-gay conversion therapy and a great deal of misinformation. Leaders at churches like New Life endorse such therapies in order to help others. Collectively, three of us have spent 24 years seeking to change and suppress our sexuality. And like the majority of others who have went through the same route, not only did it fail, but it caused great harm. Today we're here in front of New Life Church to tell our stories as a witness and a warning. And when we're done sharing our statements, we're going to present to the church collages of our experiences. Christine Baki is going to come forward first and share her experience. Christine?
Thanks. My name is Christine Baki. I'm 36 years old and I live in Denver. I'm one of the many people who believed Exodus slogan saying change is possible, a message that eventually led to my move to Colorado at the end of 1998. I believe flawed and biased research, as well as anecdotal stories of those who call themselves ex-gay. I believed I had to change my orientation so that I could be considered holy and acceptable by God and those in the church communities just like the one here. Not only did I believe that I had to change, but I also believed that it was possible. After all, hadn't all these other people done it? Didn't they say change was possible? Brimming with hope for a new life, I moved and began attending an ex-gay ministry in Denver, one that also draws members from here in the Colorado Springs area. Because I had relocated 4 states away in order to attend this ministry, I knew virtually no one and had cut myself off from my former friends. I was isolated and alone in a time when I desperately needed people. But I continued forward because I felt that I was doing God's will. I did not undertake the change process lightly. I had faith that I would change and a commitment to do all the spiritual, emotional, and psychological work required in these programs. I had also been raised with an understanding that God's power can do anything and that He longs to give us the desires of our heart. This was mine. Convinced by the message that my homosexuality was a result of brokenness within myself, I was single-minded in my pursuit of God and healing. I attended an Exodus ministry, prayer groups, reparative therapy, and pastoral counseling sessions. I bought books and tapes. I explored every inch of my past and my upbringing in an attempt to heal whatever might be broken and therefore causing my lesbian orientation. I went to conferences and weekend seminars, even one held here at New Life Church, where I prayed an emotional prayer to release me from what was called the bondage of homosexuality. I once met with 2 women right here in Colorado Springs who attempted to help me by casting demons out of me during a 6-hour session. There was nothing I wouldn't do, believing that God would be faithful in healing me. For a time, I even believed that I was experiencing change. I had less attraction toward women, and I was starting to look and act in a more outwardly feminine manner. What I failed to realize, though, was that I wasn't feeling much attraction toward anyone because I had walled off that part of myself. After more than 4 years, I began to realize that in spite of some positive changes due to my intensive therapy, my orientation had not changed. Finally, I had to face the truth. I then had to face the emotional and psychological damage from my ex-gay experiences. I felt betrayed by the knowledge that many of the people who had talked about change actually meant a change in behavior, not a change in orientation. It hurt to realize that I had based so much of my life upon their stories and claims when they were not telling the whole truth. I know that the people in churches like this one, in the ministries I attended, in my church family in Denver, did not intend me any harm, but I was harmed nonetheless. I walked away feeling damaged and broken. I felt that I was worth less than other Christians in the church, merely because they were straight and I was not. I felt a great deal of shame and hopelessness because of being a failure. I'd heard the message, it's not about heterosexuality, it's about holiness, and felt like I could not be holy now and that God must have given up on me too. I could not see myself as a beautiful person who had any worth. I had also received the damaging message that as a woman, I should be wary of close friendships with other women because they could lead to temptation. That Jesus, and then hopefully a man, would be our key confidant and soulmates. so that we would not be tempted to lean only on other women and connect too intimately. Because of this, I no longer knew how to make or sustain close friendships. I lost my church family and most of my Christian friends. I felt stuck between two worlds. The gay community had been portrayed as one of drugs, alcohol, promiscuity, and destructive relationships that could never be healthy or long-term. Consequently, I spent several painful years without friends or a supportive community. I was stuck in the aftermath of my ex-gay experiences, and I didn't know how to move on. 2 years ago, I finally was able to start moving beyond it and began my journey to true holy through telling my story. We are just the first of many to come, speaking our own truth. And now Dan Gonzales is going to come and tell his story.
My name is Daniel Gonzales, and I'm a former patient of the man who created ex-gay reparative therapy, Dr. Joseph Nicolosi, who is the founder and current president of NARTH, that's the National Association for Research and Therapy of Homosexuality. I grew up attending a Baptist youth group where I learned the cultural prejudices that is part of what made me not want to be gay, that made me think I had to change my sexual orientation. Growing up, I had very few memories of gay people, really just two. One was the HIV-positive gay man that spoke at my high school health class. The other impression of gay people I had was one of my next-door neighbors who was struggling to reconcile his faith and sexuality and attempted suicide by lighting himself on fire. With impressions, having gay role models like this, it's really no surprise that I desperately wanted not to be gay. Certainly, growing up in the Baptist church, there was no acknowledgement of gay Christians or people who had reconciled their faith and sexuality. Frankly, I didn't view being gay as a viable, fulfilling, or spiritually acceptable way to live my life. Growing up all along, attending the Baptist youth group, I had been told that if I did experience same-sex attractions, that it was just a passing phase. And so I prayed to the Lord for years, on countless occasions, not to let me grow up and be gay, to let this phase pass. And so when I finally went off to college and realized that my same-sex attractions were not just a phase, I felt as though I had tried the faith-based approach, and that's why I sought out therapy with Dr. Nicolosi. At that point, I was so desperate for change that I was willing to accept anything that he told me as truth. In short, reparative therapy, the theory behind it is that there's something broken with your own sense of masculinity, and your mind makes up for those ways in which you feel you're lacking by being attracted to members of the same sex that supposedly represent those things that you're lacking. I was in therapy trying to change my sexual orientation for 1.5 years, and even after ending therapy, it was another 1.5 years before I was ready to move on with my life and come out of the closet. During therapy, Dr. Nicolosi only continued to feed me the religious and cultural prejudices that I'd learned in my church, that being gay was not, that there were no happy, well-adjusted gay people, that was not a viable way to live your life. I was so desperate to change that I convinced myself that my same-sex attractions had some other meaning, that they didn't mean that I was gay. I went so far as to give testimony within my church that I was changing my sexual orientation. In the end, reparative therapy, in the end, ex-gay conversion therapy only did more harm than good. My family spent thousands of dollars all out of pocket for the therapy. It led, 3 more years of repression. But ultimately, and most tragically, and that's why we're here at New Life Church, feeling like I needed to go into conversion therapy ultimately led to the loss of my faith. Growing up, I'd always been told that you have to accept all of the Bible literally, or you have to accept none of it. And so when I found that what I'd been taught about gay people all along was false, in order to move on, come out of the closet and get on with my life, I had to leave my faith behind.